Welcome to Manhwa Recaps, spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. Huge shout out and special thanks to the channel members. The manhwa starts with an old man's dying breaths, saying that he is an earthling, somebody from a civilized world. A little girl enters, calling him Old Man Seo, saying it sure is sad, but her mother wanted her to bring him this. He thanks her, and she says it's no problem. He just needs to make them some soap again. She leaves, bearing the snow to head back home. The man explains again that he is an earthling, and it has been 50 years since he fell into this world. They were on their way to the company workshop with director Kim and everybody else, when they were suddenly swept up by a landslide. He woke up in a strange land. There was a giant fox with 3 tails, a 2-headed red snake, but also strange men who could all fly. He had fallen into the world of the Muram novels that he used to read from time to time. Despite that, he knew his co-workers would live better lives than everyone else, all except for him. There was a sage-like being who descended from above and was in awe of his co-workers' mythical talents, and took each one of them into the sky. Kim remained on the ground. They had their hopes that something special would happen to them as well, but he and director Kim had no special abilities. Without knowing much about how the world worked, all they could do was manual labor. After 6 months, director Kim told him he couldn't live like this any longer, and used all his money to buy a third-rate martial arts book sold on the streets. Within 3 months, he mastered it, becoming a fully fledged martial artist. He worked for the nation and learned martial arts that were more and more advanced. After that, he became a powerful warrior and left for Zhonghu. He was left all behind. He wondered if something special could happen to him as well, but until the end, there wasn't a single thing. After 50 years, he is now just an old man, dying from the common cold. As he continued to spit up blood, he said that he tried his hardest to live. He learned the language and how to write, made a living, bought a small plot of land, and built his own house. He started making decent money when he began to make soap using lye. In this equivalent of medieval China, soap was essentially a new concept. However, even that ended after thieves stole his recipe, and their thugs booted him out of the market. Now he is waiting for his death, having been refused by the world. He wonders what the world wanted from him in the first place. He tried his hardest, but it was futile. He cries tears full of regret, asking why he could not have been selected, or why he was selected to come here when he's not even special. Everything just gets taken away from him, and he no longer even has the energy to keep his eyes open. If he had just a bit more power, maybe he might have had opportunities. And that was how he died, but also how he figured out his power. As he opens his eyes, he begins coughing while looking at the sky. Then down at his hands, he wonders how he's still alive and recognizes the clothes that he wore on Earth. As he re-sees all his co-workers, wondering where they are, he says that he finally realized he didn't come to this world without powers, and he gained the power of regression. Kim says that they were just on their company trip, and he looks around worried. Seo says it's the first day. They fell into this strange world. While they were in the car, they suddenly got swept up by a landslide, and then they happened to see a bright light. And it's hard to remember what all went down 50 years ago. One of them calls out to him, but he ignores them, saying that if he's regressed, he doesn't know what to do now. Most regression stories start with abusing future information, but all he knows is how to make soap. And we finally learn his full name, Seo Yunyun. The guy screams at him, and he says that he was just surprised. Then, the section chief slaps him, to everybody else's surprise. He calls him an idiot, saying that he dozed off while driving on the mountainside and almost got them all killed. Yunyun says that he's forgotten about this. He hasn't heard that title in so long, he couldn't tell he was referring to him when he was calling out to the manager. The section chief, named Joan Myung-hoon, asks if he wants to lose his job the moment they get back, and Yunyun says that he's a son of a bitch. He's the nephew of a managing director at the company he worked at, and that he's lucky that he became a section chief at the age of 32 by nepotism. The others start calming him down, saying that he could not have avoided that landslide no matter what. Myung-hoon says that this bastard was dozing off, which is how they got there in the first place. Yunyun says that he definitely did, but there was a reason, and it was because Myung-hoon handed him all of his work, and he had to stay up way too late, to the point that his nose began bleeding, and that he was supposed to be the one driving the car to begin with. Myung-hoon yells, saying that this idiot got them all stranded here. Yunyun, now slowly beginning to recall his memories from 50 years ago, was so shocked back then that he apologized to Myung-hoon, thinking he was in the wrong. Then he spent the next 50 years just like that, apologizing to everybody, even when a group of bandits trampled over him and took his belongings, even when a martial artist mocked him, or when a regional official took everything he had in the name of taxes. But there was one thing he realized after years of keeping it in. Sure, he has to keep his temper in front of those that he can't handle, but that's not the case for everybody. As he stands up, he calls out to Myung-hoon, saying that he knows he's mad, but now is not the time to be pointing fingers. Myung-hoon rears back his fist for a punch, and hits him straight in the face, asking if he wants to fight. Yoon-yun says that he doesn't need to kneel down to people he can't handle, as he returns with his own punch, sending Myung-hoon flying. Everybody's surprised by this, and Yoon-yun says in his past life he's been beaten up by martial artists countless times. As he hits him one more time, he says that he was beaten up by bandits while getting herbs in the mountain, and by even more bandits on Bad Harvest, and even by officials because he couldn't pay his taxes. As he starts rocking Myung-hoon's shit on the ground, Yoon-yun says in this world of violence he was able to gain something that these people lack, and that is pure violence. And if you hit people in the eyes, their fear is amplified. After being beaten up like this, only 2 words instinctively leave your mouth. Myung-hoon starts apologizing, saying that he's sorry over and over. Yoon-yun says he doesn't have mythical talents mentioned by those transcendent individuals, or amazing martial arts that would make him famous in the world, but he does have the ability to change his fate. As Myung-hoon begins holding onto his head, manager Kim approaches him, asking how he could do that to his own colleague. Yoon-yun says that he's right. He got so angry, but he's sorry if they were shocked. He won't see these people again until he dies anyways. And he bows his head, as he was saying that he was the one driving, apologizing for that too. Kim says that Myung-hoon was being really harsh, and there's nothing he could have done. But even so, he overreacted, so he wants him to apologize to Myung-hoon directly. Yoon-yun says that he's going to continue seeing director Kim, telling him that he's right, also that he will become one of the strongest martial artists there is once he gets to learning. If he supports him as much as he can in this life, he's sure he'll get something out of it. That means he needs to get on his good side now. He stretches his hand out towards Myung-hoon, saying his reaction was not warranted, and he's sorry. Myung-hoon, though, is just pissed and goes to curse at him, but takes a good look at his face and turns his head, feeling nervous. A little later, Kim says that they should try to get out of the woods and look for a village. Yoon-yun says that's the logical thing to do, but common sense has no place in this world. Here, immortals fly wild, trying to secure their immortality, and the only rule that reigns in this land is the strong devours the weak. The people of this place will fight with swords for wealth and honor, and the forest therein is called the Ascension Path. There is no village, city, or nation anywhere remotely close. Yoon-yun tells the director that the sun is going to set soon, and they should set up a shelter somewhere safe. Kim thinks about it, saying that he's right. They suggest basing out of the car, as there's quite a lot of things they packed for the workshop. Yoon-yun says it's a shame, but they won't be able to find it. Of course they won't believe him, and he'll just let them look for the car instead of wasting his energy trying to convince them. He says they can split up. One team can look for the shelter, and the other can look for the car, and they should meet back here before it's completely dark. Later that night, there's a slight overhang with a rock and a fire beneath it, and one of the women says that she doesn't get it. They were in a landslide while in the car, so how did they end up here, yet the car is now gone? Kim says that he doesn't get it either, as they're all eating something. One of the women says that it tastes like chestnuts, and Yoon-yun says that she can eat as much as she wants, as he's got a lot. Kim laughs, saying that it's a pretty serious situation, but they're having fun, thanks to him. They knew he was this dependable even back in the company, and if he remembers correctly, Yoon-yun was really tired while driving because he had to work late yesterday. And they know it was Mingo's fault. One of the women says that he's right, and their manager is really diligent. The other two also agree, saying that it feels like they're camping, thanks to this cave he found. In his past life, they found this place only after being lost in the woods for hours. He tells them he was just lucky. Kim says that Buddy should just take the compliment, and Yoon-yun decides that he'll enjoy this moment, as this is the last time he can laugh with them like this. As the night slowly comes to an end. Later, Yoon-yun looks terrified, saying that he offers his greetings to the Lord of the Forest. As we see a giant fox, saying that they have quite the unique sense for humans. Despite having lived thousands of years, they have never smelled humans like them all. One of the women wakes up, wondering what's going on outside, and they all start screaming at the sight of a monster. Yun tells them they need to show their manners to the Lord of the Forest and get on their knees. The fox begins drooling, saying that every time they come across humans, they are reminded how foolish and rude they all are. And usually they would rip off all of their limbs, but since one of them seems to know how to treat them, it will forgive them this one time. With that being said, they must pay the price for being in their territory. And if one of them offers an arm, it will let them remain. In his past life, everybody saw the monster and panicked, and having angered the fox, they all ended up 1 foot in the grave, with their limbs all being chewed off. But it seems that this fox appreciates his manners this time. And it's not all of their limbs like last time. Just one person's arm is all they have to sacrifice. Even a lost arm will be healed by the cultivators who appear 2 days later. Plus, he's already prepared an herb that will reduce the pain. He stretches his hand forward, saying that he will offer his. Everybody's surprised, and the fox says that he sure does know manners, and they will try to make it as painless as possible. Yun begins screaming as blood flies everywhere, and it starts scarfing down his arm. The rest can't even watch. In pain from bleeding out, he reaches towards the herb that he found and starts eating it, saying that shit hurts really bad. The fox says that it expected a slightly different taste. Since they smell different. But it's the same as the other humans, rather he tastes awful because of all the impurities in his veins. Yun says this medieval morphine is kicking in, and he apologizes that his offering wasn't good enough. The fox says that they can stay for 7 days in the territory, and he won't have to worry about dying due to its divinity. Then it dashes off, breaking the ground beneath it, flying into the sky. The rest immediately run over towards Yun, and he says they should head inside, and he will explain. He met that fox when he left the cave earlier this morning, and the fox told him some things. They're all surprised they're in Murim, and Kim says that he never would have imagined this. Yun says they'll be safe for a week since he gave up his arm. Kim asks what they're going to do about after, and Yun says they need to give up something else. But he continuously sweats like crazy, and slowly his head starts to sink, as he tells them he's getting sleepy, so he needs to rest for a bit. They all look horrified. I'm not sure if this is the moon or a giant eye, but it's peering down at them. We hear some of the people asking Myung-hoon how he could say such a thing, since Yun sacrificed his arm. The others also say they can't agree with him, but Myung-hoon asks who wants to give up their arm and a leg in a week. Oh, and the others say they can't agree with him. Oh says that Yun is still very useful, and he's the one who gave them food and shelter. Myung-hoon says that just means they have to learn as much as they can from him in a week. Since he's already lost an arm, he won't last long, and that they should have him be the sacrifice again. As Yun staring from the shadows, overhearing their conversation, Yun says that now that he's become debilitated, Myung-hoon is trying to convince the others to cut off one of his limbs every week to give to the fox. He grabs onto one of the rocks from the cave, saying that's not exactly pleasing, and it really pisses him off. With the violence he's learned from being beaten up for 50 years, he can easily kill a modern-day man like Myung-hoon with just a single arm. As he's staring at the back of his skull while he yaps to the others, he debates killing him, but sighs, saying no while putting the rock down, and that the fear surely must have just paralyzed their minds. If he acts too cruel right now, it'll cause issues with his relationship with director Kim. Oh tells him to shut the hell up already if he doesn't want to be on the ground again. Yun laughs, saying they sure are good people, and it's just a confusing situation for everybody. The night passes by, and the next day, unlike the fox who ate his arm, the two-headed snake only requested a small amount of blood. It's the very same snake that sucked out O's blood after he lost his limbs in his last life. O says it was just a small amount, and rolls back his sleeve, putting his arm forward this time. The snake says it tastes like shit, bro, and homie needs to go get clean, and it's the worst he's ever tasted. Of course, it's because it's the blood of a 21st century worker drenched in nicotine and cholesterol, no wonder it would taste like ass. He tells Myung-hoon to come with him to pick some herbs. Myung-hoon asks if he just called him by his full name. Yun asks if he's not hungry. Myung-hoon says that he is. Yun tells him that he will explain the fruits and edible herbs, so to follow him, and that he plans to give his arm to the fox next week as well, so if he dies, someone needs to know how to survive in this forest. Myung-hoon sweats nervously, but is also excited, thanking him for the chance. Yoon-yun just wonders why he's so gullible, as the fox won't be coming back, and he'll never make use of this knowledge. Later, we hear Yoon-yun screaming at him, asking how many times he needs to tell him this, and that he has to lock in, as that fruit will get him killed, asking if he understands. He continues to teach him how to forage. A bit later, Myung-hoon sits down, saying that he needs a break as he's been digging nonstop to get herbs. Yoon-yun says this is how he was punished when he first entered the company, and he needs to finish before dusk, so to hurry up. They continue their digging until they find some ginseng, and Myung-hoon says this thing is massive, saying this is crazy. They continue their digging, asking if he sees the natural ginseng in his hand. Yoon-yun says yes, and while it does resemble ginseng, it's a yellow bamboo root. It's because of the ascension path, but they are typically as small as a pinky, and they grow to massive sizes here. It won't be of much use to the cultivators, but it's an extremely precious medicine for martial artists that they use to increase their ki, and they should help Director Kim. They spot two more. As Myung-hoon goes crazy, asking if it's okay to dig this much up, Yoon-yun says of course, and he should take off his shirt and put them in it. Some kind of storm is brewing off in the distance. Yoon-yun says it's time to head back. It's actually not a storm, but forces colliding in the air, sending out a crazy shockwave that causes Myung-hoon to fall to the floor, but it's not just Myung-hoon, as everybody else is immediately succumbing to their pressure, screaming as well. Kim looks around, wondering what's going on. As we see the Immortals flying overhead, one of them says that it's a surprise to think they'd find such uncut talent here. The one in the back tells another one called Byaho that these are his. The roided up one calls him shameless, and we learn that his name is Yagwa. Kim asks who these people are, while the cultivators continue. Yagwa says that only 3 have spiritual roots, and the rest are just normal humans. Byaho begins to stretch his hand down, creating a giant yellow orb beneath it. The first thing he does is zap the living piss out of Myung-hoon, saying it's the body of the heavenly golden thunder. Turns out Yagwa's a woman, and she says that it's her turn. She starts playing a tune, causing one of the woman's heads to start ringing like crazy, and she lets out one hell of a scream. Yagwa says that it's the ghostly yin transforming immortal root, and she can't believe such a thing existed. Now it's time for the Roid warrior, as he lands down, telling he has a unique body, and he can't believe such a unique one could exist. He will take 3 of them as disciples to the Azure Heaven Creation sect, and they have the talent to change the entire world, asking how it sounds. Though can't breathe due to the force, but says if he refuses, he'll die. Yagwa might be a man, I'm confused bro. It tells to head to the Black Ghost Valley instead. Byaho chimes in, saying that they can give him the power to overturn the heavens, and they will ensure he gets all of these things within 100 years. As they continue arguing about who's going to take him, Myung-hoon is slumped out, and one of the women is getting carried by Yagwa. Kim asks if they could get them out of the forest, as they're all going to die at this rate. Byaho uncorks a gourd, telling them that mortals worry too much, as they start sucking Myung-hoon into it, asking how they got here with such worthless bodies. The Roid warrior picks up while saying that it seems like one of them lost an arm to the fox, and seeing the wound, he offered it up himself. He may be immortal, but he sure does have guts. Yoon-yun thanks him, and the Roid warrior says that they've captured all the beasts and monsters on the way here, and that it'll be safe for the next 10 years. Kim asks them where they are going, as they don't even know which way to get out to leave. While calling out to Myung-hoon, and the woman who we learn is Manager Kang, Yoon-yun says the same thing happened 50 years ago. No matter how hard they shouted, they were ignored and continued on their paths, but at least he had his arm healed. Kim starts panting, wondering what they're meant to do in a forest like this. As shooting stars begin to fly overhead, he asks if there's something in that direction. The next day, it began storming like crazy. In the cave, one of the women is coughing up blood. While the other tends to her, she tells Yoon-yun that she's in terrible condition, and we learn that her last name is also O. She asks if there's some kind of herb they could use to stop it. Yoon-yun says they have to wait longer, as someone might appear and heal her. As he stands staring at the mouth of the cave, footsteps begin to approach them, and a man says that mortals in the ascension path is like ants suffering among the competition between dragons. Kim is surprised, asking them who they are. They smile, saying that they are the Sea Dragon King, Seo Huil. A little later, they ask what he means by control the storm. Turns out that he's here because the storm appeared out of nowhere, and he came to look for its cause, and it seems that the lady laying on the ground must be the source of the storm. She's an ordinary woman without even a trace of cultivation, so how could she wield such overwhelming power? Additionally, she's not even doing it consciously, and it sure is strange. Yun says that they are the ones confused. Not only have they just recently got here, yet one after another powerful people like Huil is appearing and taking away his companions. Huil begins laughing hella loudly, saying this means that a few of his colleagues had extraordinary potential, and then, as if it was pre-arranged, powerful cultivators showed up and took them away. Here Huil is now conveniently appearing in front of this woman. Yun says exactly, and Huil asks if they know where they are. This place is known as Ascension Path, or the Path to Ascension. There's a key gateway that leads to the upper realm. In just a few months, a dimensional rift called the Ascension Gate will open around here. It happens once every 1,000 years, and countless high-level cultivators and spiritual beings would have already begun gathering around to ascend to the upper realm. So it's quite likely that cultivators like himself would appear. Yun says he understands, but Kim is confused, as they took the others to join their sects. If they're ascending to the upper realm, how can their colleagues join them? Huil says that he guesses it might be hard for mortals to understand. There's a technique among cultivators used to shrink large objects and store them in a set of magical tools like this. They're likely holding their sects inside them. Their goal is to ascend to the upper realm along with their entire sect when the Ascension Gate opens. In fact, he too has packed one of the undersea castles of his Sea Dragon clan inside of this very item. There are 1,800 sea dragons inside of it. Yun and Kim are surprised. I'm sure Yun is pretending, but Huil says that it sure is peculiar, because if this woman were to join, she would become something extraordinary. Kim tries to tell him to wait and calls out to her. He then drops to his knees, as his eyes begin bulging out due to just the sheer pressure of being by Huil. Huil says that he'll give her his blood and accept her as his kin. That would be the best for all of them, and one more piece of advice, they shouldn't casually ask high-level cultivators questions. Kim begins pouring blood out of his eyes, nose and mouth. Huil says that he answered because he's generous, but others would have killed them for the mere act of curiosity. The storm rages on as he transforms into a dragon, flying into the sky. The next day, with the storm gone and the sun overhead, one of the women says she can't believe that their colleagues have been kidnapped. Not only that, but there's also that avalanche out of nowhere. She starts to laugh, as if going crazy. Yun walks over, comforting her. She says that he must not be taken as well, because if he is, she won't be able to survive in this forest alone. He tells her, unfortunately, their time is up, as she begins crying immediately. Feeling the intense pressure, she drops to her knees, saying that something is coming. Kim asks her what's wrong, and birds begin flying, fleeing from the forest. She tells him that it's here. And we see some kind of cyborg beast with an old person on it, asking how mortals got to the path of ascension. They laugh, saying that when it's about to open, the surrounding space becomes unstable. They might have been caught in a spatial storm, and that they really are a genius. The old person then asks who emitted that massive pressure just now. As that was such a powerful presence, they thought a sage from the upper realm had descended, wondering if it was that girl. Kim tries stopping them, saying that she is their colleague, but gets flung away without the person even lifting their finger. Yun runs over, catching him, and they both start sliding backwards across the ground. Kim thanks Yun, but looks at the marks left behind on the ground reminiscent of his skid marks in his underwear. He realizes this is bad and tells Yun that his back is crazy bad, but Yun tells him he's okay. The old person then approaches the woman, saying that she doesn't have any spiritual root, but they can awaken it with their power, and they wonder what would happen if such a strange consciousness evolved into a cultivator's divine presence. She begins crying while looking over towards them both. The old man asks if she's really still clinging to her worldly attachments after he offered to take her in. He begins to force choke both Yun and Kim. He says that in that case, he's gonna sever those ties for her. She begs that he doesn't, and she'll do anything he asks if he spares them. He says that she must forget all of her worldly ties. She tells him she understands, as he lets go of them. He says that if he leaves them here, she'll remain attached, so he will turn them to a mortal nation nearby. They'll be randomly scattered through a dimensional rift. Not even he knows where they'll go. It begins sucking them in, and Yun reaches for the herbs, as he prepared them before they would leave. The woman cries, calling out to Yun. As they both lose consciousness, we hear people talking up their wares, trying to sell them, as they are now in some kind of alleyway. Yun opens his eyes and wonders where they are, because in his previous life, this isn't where he went, and that the immortal was telling the truth, and that this is a random area. He thought this place felt familiar, and he sees this is the place he once lived in. It is the capital of Yangguo, Siakong City. As they continue waking up, Kim tells him that he can no longer keep up with what's going on anymore. Yun says he feels the same, and Kim wishes it was all just a dream. And now it's just the two of them left behind, and he guesses he should be relieved that they weren't taken away by them. Yun doesn't know if they should be happy, and while he may have regressed in his past life, he was nothing but a powerless herb gatherer. Yun says they can't stay in this alleyway forever, and they should get out of here. Kim agrees, and they start heading throughout the city. We see that everybody's dressed entirely different from them. Kim wonders why they are whispering and talking at them, and Yun says they're saying that his clothes look funny. Kim is just surprised that he can understand them, and Yun says he shouldn't worry, as he understands a bit of Chinese. Kim forgot how bad his back was, saying that's great. But Yun lied. The language they're speaking is not Chinese. Other than the fact they use the same characters, it sounds completely different. And his past life had to endure the mockery of beggars for 2 months, just trying to learn the basics of the language. But now there's no need for that. He says they should go get some new clothes, but Kim asks how, as they don't have any money. They head to a medicine hall, and the physician is going crazy that he's letting them buy such precious herbs. Yun tells him that they're at least 800-year-old bamboo roots, and the guy says this should be worth about 15 silver ingots. Yun sweats a little nervously, saying that he's never had this much money in his past life, and tells the guy to hurry then. The physician says right away, and some time later, we see a nice new house. Kim asks if this is really where they're going to live. Yun says yes, and he's going to teach him the language of this place. Kim thanks him, and Yun says he made it seem like there's no problem, but after bribing some guys for identity plaques and buying the land, they only have 1 silver ingot left. He guesses it's because they're in the capital, but everything is so expensive. Kim sees his back bleeding through his clothes, saying that since they're in a whole new place, they should just call each other by their names, rather than their titles. Yun says that's fine with him, and Kim calls him by his first name, but we don't learn Kim's yet. Later that night, Yun says the reason he was able to get all this money was because he still deserves. They won't have a source of income if they run out of them, so they need to figure out a new way to bring money in. Kim starts thinking about how, and says they could use the silver to start a business. Yun says with all the money they can get from this, as well as his skill set from having been a director at a mid-sized company, they should be able to make a living, but that's not enough. Since he's regressed, he wants to dream bigger. We learn that Kim's first name is Young-hoon, and that he is a martial genius. After reading some third-rate martial arts books sold on the street, he became a martial master in just a few months. Once he learned the more advanced techniques, he became one of the most powerful martial artists in Jianghu. What if he were to learn advanced martial arts from the start? He might be able to shift for the birth of the greatest swordsman in Jianghu by at least 30 years, and that he'll benefit as much as he can while working with him. He tells him that this is a world of martial arts, and who knows when gangs might show up if they set up a business, and they should learn some self-defense. Young-hoon looks excited, asking how they're going to learn when people don't teach outside of their own sect. Yun says as expected of him, since he's a Murim novel nerd he knew he'd be interested. In this city, there are 7 famous sects. Among those, there are the Orthodox sects and the unorthodox sects, called the 4 Stars and 3 Demons respectively. The demon-slaying sect mainly learns sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple is a Buddhist sect, while the suppressing birdhouse is focused on intel. The 7 Mysteries sect has a very long history, learning all kinds of martial arts. On the other hand, there is not much known about the 3 demons. It is said that they are proficient in stealth techniques and sorcery, and do tons of illegal things. He asks which sect he thinks suits him best. Young Hoon says that it's the demon-slaying sect. Since a martial artist should wield a sword, and a man should learn blade techniques, Yoon says it's fitting for the man who's called the best swordsman in his past life. Young Hoon is just curious how he knows all this, and Yoon says he was eavesdropping on some martial artists talking earlier. We get a whole 3-month time skip, as some men tell him to stop before a gate. He introduces Young Hoon as his older brother, and they heard about how famous the demon-slaying sect is, and came here to learn martial arts. Murim Andrew Tate, who's been sipping a little too much of the juice while in prison, looks down at him. He says it looks like they have a decent amount of money, but he's sorry, as learning martial arts at his age will be difficult. Yoon laughs, saying that they should at least let them talk to someone of a higher status, even simple self-defense would do. They finally make their way into the sect, and a guy asks if they really want to learn self-defense. Yoon says yes, he wants the best one there is, while showing a whole case full of silver. The man says he could join as an external disciple, however, they won't give special treatment to those who join with donations. In addition, they will only accept one of him. Yoon's surprised this is all they are willing to do, and Young Hoon asks if they are trying to rip them off, but Yoon cuts him off, thanking him, saying that his brother will be the one learning. The man says they should come outside later to where all of the other disciples are gathered. Young Hoon asks what the use is if he only learns martial arts. He would have chosen a different group had he known they'd be so expensive. Yoon tells him not to sweat it. It's not like he's ever been good at sports anyways, and he'll just set up a business with the remaining money and support him while he focuses on martial arts. Young Hoon says that he'll do his best, but he's old, and he doesn't know if he'll be able to do much. Yoon tells him to believe in himself, as he knows he can do it. Young Hoon thanks him for the words of confidence, and another time skip of 7 months happens. At the competition held within the sect, we see a dude absolutely pissed as he's breaking his chair, because some outsider from nowhere defeated all of his beloved disciples, and the entire demon-slaying sect was in an uproar that a balding middle-aged man clapped them all. To master a martial art means to understand the true meaning that the martial art holds, and physically attune to it. A third-rate warrior who understands the meaning of a martial art can become a second-rate if they merge it into their own understanding. In order to advance from there, they need more than double the amount of understanding compared to before, and equally more time and effort, but sometimes people with enough talent seem to laugh at typical levels of understanding, and speed through many stages at once. This sect is one full of such talented martial arts. However, an outsider has come to defeat the direct disciples of that great sect. Within 7 months, he became a first-rate warrior who had completely mastered the absolute dragon saber technique of the demon-slaying sect. Who I'm assuming is the sect leader is in disbelief that he reached first-rate within just half a year of learning martial arts. On top of that, he is an outsider learning in their sect. To others, it would seem that their traditions kneel to that one man, and he tells everybody to capture him. They now have him heavily guarded within a building, and Yoon is there as well, saying that because of an outsider gaining the skills befitting an elder of the sect is now in chaos. In such a ridiculous situation, he was imprisoned, and his quarter suspected of being a spy of another sect. However, he doesn't know why he was also considered a suspect when he doesn't know martial arts. He asks Young Hoon if he's worried. Young Hoon laughs, asking about what. Yoon says about them suspecting him as a spy, because in the novels, they typically destroy his key core, and cut off his flow. Young Hoon says that's true, but for some reason he's thinking he's approaching the next wall, and if he crosses it, he can advance to the next stage. Yoon's surprised, saying he sure is a monster, as it has not even been long since he became a first-rate, and now he's already nearing the next stage. Martial peak awaits after. Sect leaders of great sects or elders are at, and they are known as absolute masters, and there's only about 1,000 of them in the whole nation. Martial arts never mention the stage after that, so martial peak is essentially the last stage you can attain by learning martial arts. And his assumptions were wrong. At this rate, the birth of the greatest swordsman in the world will be sped up by 40 years instead of 30. A whole week later, he's meditating with 3 lotuses blooming overhead. He lets out an exhale as a blue energy leaves his mouth. Yoon says this is the flow of ki that only appears to peak martial artists. It's called 3 flowers gathering at the summit. Young Hoon says he's crossed the barrier, and he's not so scared of the sect leader anymore. Yoon says his talent far exceeds his imagination, and Young Hoon says he's also impressed by himself. He never knew he'd have such talent, and maybe this is why he always loved martial arts novels as a kid. A man then approaches them, telling them to listen well, as they have orders from the sect leader to destroy his key core for stealing their martial arts. Young-hoon finds it amusing, but Yoon-yun puts his hands up, saying that he's not a spy. And before he can finish his sentence, they punch him in the face, as they heard the two of them speaking Korean and misunderstand it as a code-like language. Young-hoon draws his blade, slicing the man's wrist, causing him to drop his sword. Young-hoon says this was his first sect. Andrew Tate asks how dare he do this, but Young-hoon instantly cuts not just his, but everybody around them on the wrist. Realizing he's a peak-level martial artist, they begin running to inform the sect leader, leaving the room full of swords and blood. Young-hoon says he intends to visit the other sects and train, asking what he wants to do. Yoon-yun says he will accompany him, and they should go to the unorthodox sect, the dragon fighting stronghold. Young-hoon laughs, saying that they can go ahead and meet there, as he will end the pursuit of the elders and leader. Sometime later, Young-hoon is laughing at a mountaintop, asking Yoon-yun what took him so long. Yoon-yun says he's just too damn fast, and sees his blade is covered in blood. They used to call his violence out until recently, even if it were to survive, and the world is changing them into something else. It would be great if they could return to their everyday life on Earth. If he were to regress again, he wishes it would just be to Earth instead, but it can't be helped. Now that they're here, they need to do what they can. After being betrayed by the demon-slaying sect, Young-hoon took over the dragon-fighting stronghold. 2 years after that, he toured each region to defeat various sects, and in the third year, he finally managed to destroy the emblems of every sect, and was known as the greatest martial artist under the heavens. He used that fame to unite the sects, forming the Martial Alliance. A whole 7 years later, they were as close as brothers, ignoring the gaps in their ages, and he created a martial art specifically suited for him, calling it the Severing Mountain Sword. He named it that, hoping he'd inherit its meaning of will that would even cut down mountains. If he masters it, he knows he'll be able to reach the peak. Not only that, the Dragon Vein Key method that was created alongside it. This is true first-rate martial arts, different from any second or third-rate. If there was a problem, it would just be one thing. As Yoon-yun falls to the floor, Young-hoon taps his club on his shoulder, saying that this is really unfortunate, and that Yoon-yun has absolutely no talent. Even though the best martial artist under the heavens created a martial art specifically for him, and taught it to him one-on-one, he barely made it to third-rate after an entire year. Yoon-yun says he guesses it can't be helped, and he does have some talent in medicine at least. Young-hoon says people are talented in different areas. And eventually, decades have passed, and one day he witnessed it, as there were now 5 flowers over Young-hoon's beautiful head. Yoon-yun says it's a level he'd only heard of in legends, as the 5 energies converging to the origin. Young-hoon starts to release an otherworldly glow from his eyes and mouth, and his body begins contorting and shifting as his hair grows longer and longer, and even changes color, and he releases a powerful surge of energy. Young-hoon calls out to him, and Young-hoon begins laughing, asking what has him so surprised. Now I can actually call his hair beautiful without it being ironic, as he went through a body reformation. If you've watched till the end, comment, Dune, to let me know. Subscribe for more videos like this, leave a like or a comment to help the channel out. Thanks for watching.